right, good afternoon. Welcome to Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is April 10th, 2024. It is 2:04 p.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. We have Vice Chair Commissioner Fournier. We have Commissioner Mejia. Commissioner Klaus will be joining us shortly, and Commissioner Edwards is excused. We have 2.5 hours, but I don't think we're going to need it. The first topic, let me just grab here. See the order we have. The first topic we have is A25 Amendment to Forest Lands Conversion and Review of Tree Protection Standards. I'll address that in a moment. Then we'll have a Legislative Steering Committee prioritization discussion, and then any other commissioner items. Also, for the record, County Manager Leonard Hernandez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell here with us in the boardroom. So, addressing the first topic, Commissioner Mejia and I had a chance to talk with staff yesterday, and we had some questions and some follow-up and some information that we really felt the board would benefit from seeing in our follow-up discussion. So I'm proposing that we move this item for about 2 weeks in order to allow staff to prepare the items for discussion that we discussed. And if the board is okay with that, then we'll just move past this topic and ask for it to be rescheduled for the next, be the 24th. Commissioner Mejia, you haven't changed your mind since yesterday, have you?
Nope, I have not.
Very good. So that will be that. And let's go to item 2, WSAC LSC prioritization. LSC standing for the Legislative Steering Committee.
Yeah, so with your packet, you should have the WSAC LSC ideas. And obviously this predates my time here, but I believe that there was conversation and we had the presentation, and so I think our desire here is to select and to focus on what the priorities are so that we can move this forward with our lobbyists.
We also want to have this be part of the agenda, that whoever is attending the LSC, the WSAC LSC meeting carries forward Thurston County's priorities.
Okay, so this always gets a little bit confusing because Thurston County may have priorities that really aren't appropriate for WSAC because they don't really have statewide significance. We also have things that we do where we identify county government priorities versus regional priorities, and we work with our jurisdictional partners to come up with kind of parallel lists. So it's a kind of an exercise of figuring out what our top priorities are, and then but like for each bucket.
Right.
And those are the 3 buckets. I'm looking at Robin. Is that about
right?
That
is the bucket that we want to support through WSAC and any statewide significance, items of regional significance that we enter into with our partners who are the cities. Let's see, who else is on that? The EDC, the Chamber, South Puget Sound Community College is part of
chambers.
That regional group. It's the group that Doug Ma facilitates. And those items are by design items that are unique to Thurston County, but have countywide significance. So one of the items, for example, that was on the regional priority list last year was the expansion of the Board of Health, and another item was the 507 roundabout,
and
both of which were successful.
Meat processing, I think.
The meat processing plant was also on the list. It did not get funded, but we did talk about it, not only on the county's priorities, but also in that form. And then we have, of course, our own priorities, which are championed by our lobbyist, Deborah.
And there are overlap, right? Like there are things that are really important to us, but they'd also be important to WSAC. There's also a tactical consideration in a sense. There are things that, you know, are important to us, could be important to the rest of the state, but maybe politically they aren't. So we don't want to necessarily go to WSAC with that because we're not going to get broad support, even though in theory you could. I'm thinking of maybe some of the DNR stuff,
That's
maybe
right.
we care about that, but WSAC, it's not gonna get any traction there because a lot of counties have different points of view. So, I don't know, that's just kind of my sort of like high level, but how we go about this exercise, I don't
So
know.
what, are we trying to determine the things that are of our interest, but also a regional interest that we would refer on to the regional, lobbying group? So should we try to put them into buckets? Is that what we're trying, these subjects, putting these into different buckets, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, and then picking like where we're really gonna go with it. Commissioner Mejia?
Thanks. I guess I'm just trying to clarify too. So, I'm just a little bit confused. Are these ideas that we're going to be sending over to the WSAC LSC, or are these ideas for our own legislative priorities and then also to be included in our shared legislative priorities? Like, what's the?
All of that in one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Plus,
Okay.
still be on here.
You said there's three, but
I think that
it's like regional.
the
What's other?
EDC is probably gonna be
Oh, okay.
trying to move forward some ag park stuff in the next year.
Here's something we could do if we just want, we got plenty of time. We could go through each one and put it in a bucket.
Yep.
Then we'd have like 3 lists of like 5 or 10, and then we could just, we could all vote and rank them, and then we would just come up with the internal
Perfect.
ranking within the bucket.
Can we get the whiteboard and then do different
Yeah.
buckets and write?
Yeah.
Can the whiteboard be put beside Wayne so the camera catches it?
You're
Yes,
right behind
Oh,
it.
you gotta be here.
Right behind it.
the big one.
Must be present to win.
Okay, so let's just kind of get started and see how it works. So first one is use of is this a good thing to use?
Yeah, that document.
Is that the full
I think
list?
so.
There seemed like there was a different list on my phone, but it might just be figured differently. Oh, no, that's right. Okay, so use of conservation futures funding for the purchase of water rights. Well, that's definitely well,
It's a statewide thing.
It could
be
be
a WSAC thing.
statewide. I don't know how much traction you're gonna get, in other counties. I don't know how many counties here you want me to, I can describe.
I mean, some of these are just like, you kind of have to throw them, like, if you're the LSC guy.
Yeah.
So you just, like, we give you 4 or 5 things maybe, and you just,
Throw it at the wall, see what sticks.
yeah, see if anybody, I mean, you don't know, right? We don't know if other counties are struggling with this, and maybe you have to bring it up and see if anybody's like, yeah, that's a great idea, Wayne, or Thurston County.
So water rights is actually becoming a big topic of conversation, like in other counties as well. So I would say add this to the WSAC list.
Okay, so for now, we're putting it on the WSAC list. And again, these are not mutually exclusive.
Thank you.
So we're gonna make a WSAC column, a shared ledge column, and then a just us column?
Yep.
Commissioner Klaus, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
If you have,
Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I can hear you. And we're trying to work out a process for how to manage the legislative priorities. So we decided we've created 3 buckets. And we're gonna sort the priorities into buckets, and then within each bucket, we can just vote or whatever, however we wanna come up with a prioritization list, and then maybe top 3 go through, or 4, or whatever. But right now, we're just going item by item and saying, is it really just a Thurston County priority? Is it have statewide interest that WSAC might want to deal with it? Or is it a regional, meaning not just Thurston County, but our cities and our different partners around the region that might want to include it on that? So we're just kind of sorting the items into 3 buckets.
We've color coded them.
Got the whiteboard, if you can see that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We just did the first one, which was water rights, conservation futures, flexibility to purchase water rights. We're putting that for now into the state bucket because we think it might have state interest. Okay. Next item is extension of sewer to public facilities outside of UGAs. So right now, there's an exception for schools, but could that be expanded to something like existing public facilities like our Tilly Public Works campus. That would be, I mean, in theory, other counties could want to do that.
You'd think that other counties would want to do that.
Let's just put it there for now then. WSAC, sewer to, sewer
Utilities?
to, public facility outside. Okay, the next one is county fiscal sustainability. That's, you know, there's actually some sub-buckets there. That's really the 5077 bill, like giving us latitude on property tax. We're capped at 1%. Could that go up to 3% if inflation warranted it? There was a bill. I testified in favor of it. A lot of people did.
Is WSAC gonna support it this year?
I'm not sure. That conversation is always super rocky. I think we should add it on both our list and WSAC's list. But that's just my thought.
For
With
which,
ours and
for which
WSAC?
one?
Add it to
For
our.
the
Like
county fiscal sustainability.
the property tax.
Yeah, I was
cap.
like the B and O tax discussion, the utility tax discussion, that has to be a WSAC thing, right?
Yeah, that's not a.
Yes.
Or would it be all three?
So, just sticking with this one, you know, Jim Cooper sat next to me in the room and testified on behalf of Olympia. So it's really a regional, and Andy Ryder has been a big proponent as well. So I would put this under regional as well, rather than just county.
So put it under the 3 buckets.
But this is more than just the property tax thing, right?
Well,
Because the property tax thing didn't go anywhere, and nobody, like, so that's why I was suggesting the B and O and the utility.
I was gonna do those separate.
Okay.
so I
Might all
can tell
be.
you that the regional partners will not support the 1% lift. Because it is a statewide thing and it's not unique to Thurston County. I ran into that last year.
Okay, so the regional ones have to be unique to Thurston County issues,
Yes.
not state. Okay, then Commissioner Mejia's right then, let's put it on both. Because it was on our list last year. All right. There were 3 kind of, public defense funding was next.
That's gonna be
That's
a
statewide,
countywide.
that's WSAC.
Yeah, it's statewide.
So I just leave it there. Next is the utility, and let's combine these two. Utility/B&O tax for counties.
What's
I
B?
don't know if you're
Business and
gonna,
occupation.
yeah,
Cities can do them, we can't.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of another thing that constrains us.
where do you wanna put it?
I think it's gotta be a WSAC one, right?
If it's gonna go anywhere.
Unless we just know it's not gonna.
I mean,
It's
maybe it's not
WSAC.
gonna go anywhere, but
It's highly unlikely that some of the other counties will support that. Commissioner Mejia, what are your instincts on that?
This one's the B&O one, right?
No and/or utility taxes for counties.
Any kind of conversation having to do with taxes is really just very difficult at WSAC with the rest of the county. So, I mean, we can try, but I don't think it doesn't hurt to add it onto the WSAC list is kind of where my thought is.
I thought it might get more attention than the property tax thing, since that was like vilified.
So we've tried utility taxes on many occasions over, like, that I'm aware of, the last 40 years. And they go nowhere fast. I haven't ever seen that I can think of the counties go for B&O taxes.
Let's do it. Let's throw it against the wall, and
Let's
if
try.
it doesn't stick.
It's on the WSAC list and you can choose where to prioritize it.
Okay, next is the state sales tax holdback for animal services.
we get any traction in WSAC on that last year?
No.
No, flat no. Let's call it a local then. Let's just call it local.
Okay.
County or region?
The region won't support it. It's not unique Thurston County.
Thurston County
you
has a
could
need
make
because
it-
of the joint animal services.
So the way to kind of wrap it into a Thurston County issue is we know right now that animal services needs a new facility. So the regional group might support a capital request specifically for a facility for animal services, for JASCOM.
But
That's a
not-
different issue, though.
Yeah,
It
not a
it is
luxury
a
tax.
very different issue. They're not gonna support a luxury tax because it is not unique to Thurston County.
We can try, I mean, we can add it to the list. I think, just based on how the new bylaws for LSC are set up and the voting's a little bit different, it won't hurt to add it on, I don't think.
To WSAC.
Yeah. Maybe we have just a little bit more luck this year than we have in the past.
I'm also gonna add it to the county list because Deborah Munguia was doing quite a bit of work on that.
Okay, tort reform, this is Commissioner Edwards's item, which is, you know, the joint, reforming Washington's joint several liability rules. That's a statewide issue. If it were-
For reform?
It's usually, Deborah usually tells us it's dead on DOA, but
That's right.
let's just put it up there so we have it accounted for. The timber study, the thing that I was talking about sort of a study akin to the taxation study to look at how timber revenues are, how things are, the things that are financed through timber revenues could be
To do a
reformed.
study?
Isn't there a timber caucus for WSAC?
There is, yeah,
And what are they talking about?
cutting
They-
trees.
Yeah, stopping the cutting of the trees. But do you think the timber caucus will want to go forward with something like that?
I don't think so, but
They're on the other side of things.
so timber revenue study, I'll just call it that, to keep it short. Put it under local for now. Housing costs. Oh, this is maybe just a heading. Is that just a heading, or is that something, mean something specific to somebody? The next couple items are related to housing, so I'm thinking maybe that's just a heading.
Yeah, it might be.
So the rural ADUs, you know, this is one, Commissioner Edwards isn't here. I don't know that I agree with his position on it. I mean, I don't know that I would even vote to have this as a priority, but let's keep it on the list just so we can account for his thought. So for county manager's background, we used to have a pretty restrictive rule in Thurston County where we didn't allow any ADU in the rural area, period. ADU meaning built, like built in.
Okay,
We allowed for this thing called a family unit, so you could move, it had to be like movable, and it could be there for a temporary period of time and a family member kind of thing, like it was like, so that was kind of the compromise from like way back. And by the time I got to the board, they were already trying to get it to like where we could, make it more flexible. So during my first term on the board, we approved a new policy that allows, so it was a compromise, because the Future Wise, which is a growth management watchdog group, they were rattling saber, and they go to court a lot. They were rattling sabers that if we go too far with this, they're gonna slap us with gross management violations. So they worked with stakeholders and we came up with a policy that basically said, you can do ADUs. They're more liberal if you're like on building it, like if you're adding on to the same, footprint kind of thing. But if you're in detached ADUs could be done, but you couldn't increase the density requirement. So like, if you had 10 acres and you could do a house on every 5 acres, you could add an ADU, no problem or whatever, but you couldn't like add the ADU if it was gonna violate the underlying zoning density. So that was a major step forward, but it's still fairly restrictive because people can't, do them unless they've sort of got the land and can adhere to the overall density scheme. So that's where Commissioner Edwards, I think, is proposing that we go, because we need more housing, whatever, that we go further on that. Jennifer Davis was the person that really drove that forward when she got that path to the finish line, and I know she had worked. I both have policy concerns as well as legal concerns that if we go further than we were told at the time that this was really as far as we should probably go before we really do run legal risks. So I do think that if we go further, we're gonna need to work carefully with our lawyers. And I have concerns about whether we should or even do that, even if it were permissible, but
What if it's statewide fix?
if the
then it's
state
not-
changed the law to allow it, I think that's where Commissioner Edwards is getting, creating an exception to growth management so that we'd be allowed to do it. So let's put it on the list. It would be a WSAC item. And, but that's kind of the backdrop there. Next up is ongoing operational funding for right-of-way. Yeah, that's the new name for the right-of-way. So this is the idea that we got 3 years of funding for these big right-of-way projects and what's gonna happen after the 3 years. And that's our new Maple Court. There's another big project that's part of that. So that's definitely an important one, and that would be a regional one, wouldn't it, Robin?
They did agree to put it on the regional list last year because it is unique to 3 counties that got the right-of-way funding. So
Let's put that on regional.
What's the new acronym for it?
ERP, confusingly,
Oh, yeah, that does confuse me.
since we have an ERP
Yeah.
computer project. ERP/ROW is what it says on the list.
And it's the M&O funding.
Yes, operational funding. Okay, that's clear on that one. Next is park M&O funding. And this is not limited to impact fees, right? This is just, generally speaking, we don't have any, or is this specifically the impact fee? No, this is specifically the impact fee. So right now, we collect impact fees for parks, but none of it is allowed to be used for M&O. And you have 10 years to use it or you give it back to developer. So we pile up these money and we're afraid to spend it because we don't have any funding source to do park M&O. We have, as Commissioner Edwards likes to say, 4.5 parks maintenance staff for the county. Lacey's got 37 park staff. I mean, we're just so under-resourced. And so the idea was to allow up to 15% of the park impact fees to be used for ongoing M&O. And master builders didn't like that. And our local legislator, Beth Dolio, carried the water on it in like 2019-ish. Didn't get very far, so we shelved it for a few years, but meanwhile, the problem just festers, and we've got no brighter solutions, really. So this would help, and so the question is, should we bring this one idea back? Because it should be in my opinion, this should not be controversial.
I wouldn't think so.
But, it was back when we tried to move it, but if we worked harder on it, could we get it, through the ledge?
So the money can only be used to build new parks? It can't be used to like completely renovate or change a park? Or is that
It
considered
can be,
maintenance?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but it can be used to expand, but like.
Capital, that's like capital versus operational.
Right.
You just can't use it to like if it's a trail, like redo the pavement, restore trim the bushes off the trail.
Right, I'm just wondering if
Sweet,
you
clean.
can use it to then build stuff, new stuff on a park, not necessarily have to expand the park.
No,
build a new park.
it's specifically for new, and it's that way because it's connected to development. So when someone's developing the area,
They
then
want
you're
new
supposed to
parks,
put in the
as an
parks
amenity.
and, exactly, it's the amenities.
Expanding amenities within existing parks.
That would be quite the stretch, as
Perfect.
Commissioner Edwards likes to say, and we can talk to our attorneys. But right now, no M&O out of impact fees.
Okay, next up is. Make sure I'm looking at the right word. Almost done. County MPD EMS process. That's yours, right?
That's something that
Is that connected to what we heard about yesterday?
But,
So what do you want to see changed?
well, I mean, okay, I don't understand everything like completely, but my understanding is that from the Department of Health, you can be certified or you can be licensed. When you're licensed, you are like a nurse. A nurse is licensed and they can go work in any hospital, county, state, whatever, if they're licensed. If you're certified, it's different. And our EMS providers are certified, so they have to then work under someone else's license, which is the medical program.
And you were saying like you wanted them to be able to do IV or.
Well, that's
certain-
so like right
certain
now,
functions.
right now, all those functions that they're allowed to do are determined by that one person because they work under that one person's license. But if the state was to switch or allow for like licensing instead of certification, then it would change the power dynamic in how the skills are decided and then given out to providers. And it would probably be done more on a statewide scale, like like that's how California does it.
Okay, so I'm gonna call it like, EMS licensing / certification issue,
Yeah,
okay.
And where would you like to put that?
that's a hard one to talk about with WSAC or anybody else. But maybe, I don't know. Like I talked to, Dan Griffey and Dan Bernowski are ready to co-sponsor legislation. And so I'm talking to those guys about it. But I don't know that WSAC is gonna understand or anybody's gonna listen to the intricacies or nuances of that.
You said, and I'm jumping ahead, you said meat
Yeah, I
thing
think
you want to have on here?
regionally, I know the EDC is going for more money for the ag park and for meat processing in the region. And, like if we put it on our agenda and we make sure it's on the regional agenda, that'll just help us like advocate for funding on their behalf, I think.
Commissioner Mejia?
I'm trying to get the information from Ben, but there was the certificate of need from the hospitals. That was an issue that I brought last time, and but from what I've heard from both Ben and Rob is that it's highly antiquated, and maybe adding that to our WSAC list.
Hospitals
Wayne, do you?
need?
The certificate of need. Wayne, do you know?
Isn't that about like what they have to go, the bureaucracy they have to go through to get new bed spaces like opened up?
Okay.
I think there's,
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's kind of, was like a big thing with Providence where they couldn't get, they're waiting for their certificate of need to be approved by Department of Health or something, so they had the space, but they couldn't, they needed the bureaucracy to say, okay. Is that what we're talking about?
That's something that the hospitals need to bring forward?
Okay, so it's possible not a county item.
Just Commissioner Mejia, I mean, if you all agree that you want to bring it up at one of these venues, then that's your prerogative. I just think if it does come from the hospitals, that the legislature is not going to give it much credence.
No, and I agree, but maybe through our WSALFO.
Okay, so hospital,
Certificate of need, is that what you said?
yeah, they gotta get the certificate of need that will authorize them to have additional beds.
Okay.
And there's often, competing organizations.
Is that a regional thing or a WSAC? Is
No,
WSAC gonna?
it's not unique to Thurston County, the
Okay.
region won't touch it.
I know the incoming new president of Wasalfo, so
Oh, there you go.
he's our public health director.
Yeah.
Right, you're right. I was like,
Maybe
I know
what
I heard that
we could
acronym.
champion is the, getting these things processed faster, because I've seen them languish for years.
Commissioner Klaus or Mejia, this is, I guess, the time to throw anything up here that you didn't see that you wanted up here. It's been rattling around your heads. This was that's the end of our idea list from our planning session. Did this get everybody's,
Hard for me to say when I can't see the board,
oh,
and my service has been pretty bad, so I haven't been able.
okay, fair enough.
So I'll check out the board when I get there.
All right. Okay, well, if this were the sum total of our priorities, then the regional list looks pretty
That's easy.
small. We can,
Yeah.
and then, we're not the only ones, like Lacey, Olympia, other places may have, EDC may have
All of
lots
the
of priorities.
partners contribute,
So we don't need a,
so I
20
would
pages.
say that we should send all three of these to our regional partners, and then we'll see where they come out as the regional partners determine what's gonna go
Are
forward.
we all saying we want a capital request made for a JazzCom facility?
I got a question there.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how those things get done, frankly. I mean, I don't know.
That's the, like, sleazy politics part.
Yeah.
And you get, well, every time I've done it, like, you get one request. You get, like, basically, and you wanna make it the best one, and that's the one that you wanna really be, like, rubbing elbows over. And so, like, if we're gonna make a request for money for some
It's gotta
type
be
of
meat
capital
processing
project-
or an animal shelter, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it's helpful if it's something that you've got some skin in the game on, and then it's helpful if it's something that is truly
You have a lot of fur in the game.
regional and everybody's behind.
So I will say that in this last legislative session, we were wildly successful. There was funding for, conservation land that was granted. There was, our roundabout funding that, Barkus pushed through. There was our Board of Health bill was successful. It seems like there were a couple other items on that list that actually made it across the finish line. So the shared region agenda was, really surprisingly successful. And it wasn't just funding for one. There were a number of items
But
on
if
that
we,
list.
the county is gonna make a request, right? Like do we have we have a lot of capital facilities needs.
I'm
Yeah.
not suggesting that it be on the county's legislative agenda. I'm suggesting that we could get it onto the regional agenda. Let me also share with you, sorry to interrupt, but that until last year, the county wasn't successful at getting anything on the regional agenda for probably 10, 11 years.
That's weird.
So we were wildly successful to get stuff on last year.
My thought is like, we have a bunch of capital facility needs, and we should all pick what that top one is, and that should be on the county list, and then that's the one that we should be asking to be on the region list, because that's what we really need.
We should throw all these out and see which one can stick.
Okay.
Because the partners may not be interested in any of these. We're pretty positive that all the JazzCom partners might be interested in
Okay.
that one. Because we're all gonna have to chip in for a facility if we can't
Some
find other
point.
money.
But what do we need? Like, is it money for a childcare facility that we want to build on the
We
At the
did want money,
courthouse area,
like, we tried
is
to
it-
make we tried to make an ask for the elections thing, and that didn't work. And then the meat processing was there, and that didn't work.
Right.
I mean, we did get,
We
The
got
ag
the
park, we've gotten
interest
money,
of,
but-
yeah, we got the ag park money. We had some interest on the meat packing, or Orcut was interested in that, but not enough to push it
I think it was an
through.
off year or something like that.
I've
Yeah,
got
exactly.
I've got a regional one, though.
Okay,
I mean, I know that's going to be covered by others, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we need the money from the state for the Capitol Lake project.
yes.
That's of regional significance. So that should be on everybody's list.
Yeah. Can I add a couple more?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. I think, yes, Commissioner Menser, I'm in agreement with that one. Then I am also thinking about, and of course, I just went blank, the childcare facility, right? The one that we're planning in Building 7, I think we should make a request for that. And then also I'm wondering that the DNR with Habitat for Humanity project as well. I think that one should go on our shared legislative agenda for sure.
The regional one for Habitat,
The DNR with Habitat for Humanity project.
okay.
Well, yeah, I mean,
More funding for that DNR program, is that what you're saying?
you're talking about the policy part though, right? It's not just the Habitat project, but their needs to,
They're doing that pilot program.
If that's what they're-
Yeah,
yeah, they need.
they weren't successful this last time around, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just pointing out, it's not about,
It's not
the
about
project they're
money.
gonna end up doing is a Habitat for Humanity, but it's a higher level need they have to get a legal, to allow them to use certain type of tax money or
I
whatever.
thought that was passed.
One thing was passed and one part wasn't passed.
We can find out.
Yeah, I've
So
got
there it is.
I've got the handout,
Yep. Cool.
okay?
Commissioner Mejia, I don't think I caught your item on childcare,
Building
Oh,
C,
just for Building 7.
Building 7.
Would that be something,
That
to ask for money
needs to go
for?
on our own list.
yes,
nobody
Yes.
cares about that for this.
we need regional childcare.
But it's a county building and, I mean, I don't think that's a regional,
Yeah.
it's gonna be in the, okay. But yeah, what I was trying to say, and I think Wayne was hitting on it, it's like, I understand that sometimes, Robin's right that maybe we throw out multiple ones because we don't know which ones the region might like.
Right.
But ultimately, it's probably good to have one, you know, if we were in the
We
regional
especially
group,
wanna put
we
it-
probably want to put, because it's like, you know, a lot of these things are policy oriented, but like when I'm always not nervous is the right word, but just unsure about the whole, just asking for money for you know what I mean? Like, we're asking to change the law, that's the legislature's job, that's legit. But if you're just saying, give me money for something that I want to do in my county, that we could use our own money for if we had it.
I've done it a lot.
Yeah, we've done it a lot and we always do it, but I mean.
And if you're
how
not
that
doing
work-
it, you're leaving money at the table.
How that works and what the tactics are about that and everything, like Senator Hunt, for example, used to tell me, I don't know, I remember like my first year, he was giving me some advice on that,
It
like, you know.
depends on what committees
Needs to
they're
come in,
on.
yeah, it needs to come in like during this part of the process because it won't go anywhere in this part of the
Yeah.
process, but when they're doing these
And
budget
if they're on the right
provisos, you can
committees, that, like,
ratchet it
Something
on into
in,
something, it's
yeah.
like, all that stuff
That's
is like,
right.
all
we
a little
also have,
mysterious
we
to
have
me.
Earmarks.
3 different legislative districts, right? So you can make a request
Yep.
of each of them, you know, so the 20th, you know, a Barno's on the capital budget.
Right.
So having like the meat
Get
processing
Tenino
to go to
stuff.
them, yeah, they won't conflate that with what you asked to the 22nd. So you can ask them for the childcare money too.
You can.
I think it's important that you package these up, understanding what the legislature wants to see. So what's their priorities? What is the committee's priorities? Is it partnerships? Are you bringing money to the table? And you do that through the conversation from staff to their staff, saying, hey, we have this idea. And then you even find out sometimes they have money, more money than anticipated, and so you have things ready to go to say, hey, we want this as well. And I'm with Commissioner Fournier that if we're not doing it, we're leaving money at the table, because other people are getting it. That's how it works.
So I have another one
For
for
addition, you would want to do this at a federal level as well.
Yes.
We're working the federal earmarks.
So this came up at the Innovative Justice meeting yesterday, where we were talking about, we had a presentation from a vendor, kind of, about a new facility that they're doing in Kirkland, and it's like a crisis stabilization and evaluation and treatment, and all those different types of like crisis-related mental health things, all in one. And they were showing how they've structured it to give it more flexibility and more capacity. And everybody was talking about, well, how do we fund this and get it built, and blah, blah, blah. And Joe Avalos from the OHRS and BHO was saying that basically the Medicaid rates, which we've been talking about, are so low that the ones that we have in these various are closing up. And the Recovery Innovations, which has been talked about opening in Olympia for the whole time I've been on the board, they've just spacked out, sealed it up, it's not gonna happen. And so, and there's a couple others that are closing. And the Medicaid rates are so bad that these facilities just can't operate in these crisis models. And so that's totally independent of trying to up the game with this new model that's going up in Kirkland, but we can't even keep hold of what we've got in the community. And so I think addressing the mental health, addressing behavioral health with the Medicaid rates that are paid for the crisis services and beds is something that needs to be discussed. Because it's not the first time, I mean, it just reminded me and gave me an update, but it's something that I've known to be an issue the whole time I've been on the board.
Did Kirkland receive state or federal money to help build their facility?
Kirkland, if you give me a second, I wrote it down, what they said they did. It was kind of a braiding of different sources, and I'm trying to remember. Let's see, this would be.
But I can see where to be the rates.
Yeah, how are you gonna continue to pay for it?
Yeah, the rates are crazy low.
Okay, let's see. Who fund? King County, let's see, they're getting grants from Department of Commerce. They got money from the legislature. They did a straight legislative ask. They bill all the Medicaid people that they can, they bill the commercial people they can, and they have local dollars. And King County passed like a comprehensive ballot initiative to fund behavioral health and crisis centers.
Okay, so they're getting a
So
separate tax base for that.
they have a local tax base, kind of like, you know, analogous to our treatment sales tax in a way, but targeted toward the creation and staffing and operation of these behavioral health crisis centers. So those dollars to help the people that aren't funded by Medicaid or they
That's probably their O and M, and then what
Yeah.
they're looking for was the one-time capital dollars.
Yeah, they said commerce, multiple grants, legislative ask, money to build facilities. There's different models. They've got, this one, a lot of people have heard of the Arizona model. Apparently they've done some progressive things, and they started there actually. So they're
Okay.
part of what people thought, but they're exporting that now to different places. And they said the way they got the facilities built is different in every
Yeah, it is,
place.
because you're looking for what kind of funding sources can you cobble together. But this is like an all-in-one, so the person comes and there's all kinds of treatments, so they don't have to be shuffled around from one service or department to another.
Yeah, they have a 23-hour observation. They have these, it's like, they said it's like recliner chairs, because there's this 16-bed limit, you know, where if you go above 16, you're in some different category, you can't get reimbursed,
Can't get
everything. So they have 16 recliner chairs, and then 16 like rooms kind of thing, like units, and then, so they can flex people in and out. They've got all the staff, like they're really super staffed is kind of how they explained it, so that they can be flexible and move people where they need to be and have the flexibility. Police drop off,
Right.
which is something we've talked about for years and years and years here, like police drop off, boom, they're out. All the full service provider from 23 hours or less observation to 24 hours, you know, or more.
Yeah,
I've got all the different components of what's in there, but it looked pretty,
Yeah, and the idea is
Impressive.
rather than taking them to jail or to an ER where they're gonna not get the service they need, you take them there and then the hope is that they get into the stream of service and don't have to have disconnected service and sometimes miss medications or get a wrong diagnosis and be more hurt in the process than helped.
but we haven't really had the facility that really could bridge all the different, it's a continuum, right?
Yes.
People that need this, they need that, they need this, they need that, and,
We have all the providers.
having
here.
one place that's actually easy for law enforcement, but then actually on the back end hits all the different, continuum levels. This place was trying to make the case that that's what they do. And they're opening a facility in Kirkland and they wanted us to hear what they do.
Well, and DSHS is apparently wanting to fund a facility like that because we got pretty far along in conversations with them. They wanted to take over our current facility on Ferguson, provide funding to the BHASO to move that operation elsewhere, and then they would build out the facility for what we needed for more of a triage, which was the original concept. But the legislature did not fund them. So that conversation got mothballed.
But they want to do it here in
They
Thurston
did
County.
want to do it here in Thurston. They were interested in Thurston. Thurston was interested because the state got hit with a court order to provide better services.
So I think that's the kind of thing we look at what's, to Commissioner Fournier's point, like, what are we asking for, but also what are we lining up to bring all those partners together so that they're aligning their requests and it becomes more, it jumps from regional to state. And then you bring the state offices to the table that are like, hey, we have to do something anyways. And then you're looking for who's bringing what to the table, whether is it land or a building, capital, ongoing, operations and maintenance.
So just for the sake of clarity, DSHS stalled because the governor didn't include it in his budget,
Oh, gotcha,
which means that they could not advocate with the legislature for it.
gotcha.
Okay. Emily, are you tracking what we've put all the different priorities that we've brainstormed at the planning session, although we're throwing new ones in today.
Yeah.
But all the ones that we did, we've put them into buckets. Do they fall more under a state level that WSAC might actually help us with? Are they regional, meaning they're, South Puget Sound, Thurston County, the cities, not just our county government, and then county, our very specific asks. And then within these buckets now, we're gonna try to prioritize.
I don't see the regional corrections on here. Is that something that we would want to put on here? Or is it on here and I'm missing it?
That's
Where
not
would it
really a.
fit?
I'm not really
I was
sure.
thinking about it, but I don't know that they would give us money for that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what are the goals of doing this? Like, what are the implications of these three buckets? I mean, the WSAC one is pretty clear, but for the regional and the county ones, I mean, what would be the next step?
It's developing our one pager of like when we go to meet our legislators during the beginning session, like, here's our top 3 things that we want you to work on for Thurston County.
Okay,
They'll ask us that and they listen. And then we want to kind of all be speaking the same music. So it's all of
Okay.
us to kind of collaborate on a top 3
It gives us a sheet of music when we're going.
or
and-
5.
yeah, like the last one, I
Yeah.
remember we had that.
So this
Okay.
is like trying to get ahead of that and develop
Yeah.
it now so that if certain priorities we have take some legwork, like it's a brand new concept, like
Yeah.
we've got time to like flesh it out. If we only think of it in like November, it's like too late to do anything with it because
Yeah.
the legislators need to know about it going into session.
Okay, well, would the corrections, regional corrections be something for this, or is that like something we would handle separately?
Well, right now, we haven't really developed anything that in theory, we could do regional corrections without any money from or policy change from the legislature. Now,
Yeah.
in reality, money from the legislature is always nice, but we haven't really gotten to the point where it's like, oh, we can't do this unless we get X from the state. So it's not really on this topic.
I think
And I don't
you've
know-
got to be at a point where you're like, hey, we need $7 million to do this. Otherwise, we're just, and you can do it. We're like, I
Yeah,
think 8 million helps.
how about a
But then, and I've
courthouse?
like where
We need
I
a
get into a
courthouse.
position where I didn't ask for enough and then
Yeah.
I'm hosed.
Well, he's bringing us back about 10 years.
Yeah.
The I don't think, because the jail study is also going on,
Mhm.
ongoing. I don't think the legislator will touch anything having to do with corrections.
No, that's, the timing's not quite right.
So, let's just talk about the courthouse for a minute,
Sure.
since you brought this up. I mean, again, it falls into that category of like, why would the legislature give us money for this, you know? I mean, there's lots of things we want money for.
That's why I said childcare facility.
Yeah.
Like, that's a
Like it
piece of
sells
the
better.
courthouse that we could sell to them. Yes, that's like, it's kids, it's everybody knows that, you know, so that's like, it's a chance to take something off of our plate that can get money from them to fund what we need, is my thought. Because if you go in there like, well, the judges want better dressing rooms, they're gonna tell you to pack sand.
I mean, I think that our partners at the courts would be able to articulate much better reasons than that. We've seen the courthouse. I mean, I think all of us have seen it, and we know that it's falling apart. And then we also lost that opportunity for the mock trials that was here in Thurston County that got moved to Pierce County, which brought a lot of revenue into our community because people from all over the state would come for that because we're the capital, and it made a lot of sense for it to be here, but there's not facilities for it. So I know it would be a huge ask, but I think that like we're probably not the subject matter experts on how to articulate that ask, but we have a lot of people we could talk to figure out if it's even feasible to ask for that or how we would approach it if we wanted to.
And some of this is good conversation for, as Robin mentioned, potential earmark conversations. And to your comments about, yeah, this is the big pie, but here's slices, because they may not have the money for the big pie, but they can say, well, I can slice,
Yeah.
I can buy a slice of
We
it.
say we've got 50 million going into the courthouse project. We need 7 million
Yes.
for the children's place for phase 4.
Yes,
Yeah.
par for.
They love when you say phase.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we also, in the courthouse remodel, we're adding this whole other layer to Superior Court that wasn't, you know, and now we're not, which building is it? Is it building
2.
5? Which one is it that we're not touching anymore?
Oh,
That got taken off the list because now we're adding this huge, like, other annex to Superior Court.
6. Building 6 is the one that we're abandoning a bit because it's not worth renovating.
I mean, that's kind of one of the buildings where, like, if we're going to do an earmark request, I would like to see if we can invest in that, because that's, you know, how many times do we always hear that there's needs for office space, and, you know, we're leaving that building behind to be able to do this other thing. And I just, you know, I was very hesitant on even moving with that approach when we approved, you know, moving forward with this. But we did it to add that additional space for the court. And, you know, I feel like that would be a reasonable earmark request.
I'm gonna play,
Because we're now abandoning that building, basically.
going back to your idea, one thing that we might hear if we were to try what you're saying is that previous commissioners went and got like, from 9 years to 25 years to allow financing. We got the law changed to allow only Thurston County to finance a new courthouse property tax bonds over a longer time horizon. And yet we didn't actually go to the voter. Like, we put it on the ballot and COVID knocked it out. So I mean, a legislator could say, look, we already changed the law for you and you didn't even go and ask your voters if they wanted to do it. Like,
Yeah.
if we went to the voters and they shot it down, then we'd be on firmer ground maybe to say,
Makes
look,
sense.
we tried and we can't, we're gonna need state help or else we're never gonna be able to do this. Just a
Yeah, that makes
point,
sense.
you know, and it's like, there isn't really a good response to that.
You've got to know how much you're asking for, and I don't know how much it is to build a childcare facility. So you've got to have a plan to build it anyways, and say you want 5 million, they give you 2 million. You've still got to be able to build the thing, so like, you've got to be in a position where it's just kind of extra money.
So we've got the pre-design done. We have a grant from Commerce for Building 7 to do the design work. We're looking for a childcare partner to help us design it.
So that's
The-
shovel, that's gonna be shovel ready.
It is gonna be shovel-ready, and we'll have a dollar amount when we get closer to session.
Yeah, I know.
So it'll be phase 3.
Yeah, and then you give them something to cut a ribbon in front of, they need all those things.
Right, and it's childcare for, it's a combined solution because, the grant money requires that we reserve at least some of the spaces for working connections, families, and then we can reserve some spaces for county employees. We'd be addressing the 24/7 need for our corrections and,
Could it be
police
public
officers.
employees?
It could be
Beyond county?
public. It could,
Interest
depending
for
on
region.
how we set it up. But we've got to figure out how many kids we can serve. I think Jenica said 100. I think that the initial review was we could have up to 100 kids, but that's all going to depend on ages. Because that seems like a lot for that building.
It does.
But, so I think that the child care facility, we could wrap it in a way where it could have a shot. I don't know about building 6. Building 6, well, building 7 is gonna require a lot of work, but it's gotta focus. I don't know about building 6. Building 6 is in bad shape.
Yeah, you're tying it to an identified need that the state is very familiar with.
I have another one that I don't see on the list, regarding like continued or increased funding for homeless services. Is that something that we would wanna?
And we put the ERP stuff on there right away.
Yeah, I saw the row stuff.
Where's that at?
That's the closest we had, was just the,
Yeah,
Continue the ERP and right away funding.
yeah, operational funding for those.
yeah. I don't know if there's, cause the ERP right-of-way stuff kind of tied the hands of a lot of our homeless service providers. So I don't know if there's, it's kind of half-baked, so I'm not like totally ready to articulate a full ask, but I think that there is a lot of value in considering other avenues for supporting homeless services, in a way that doesn't like kind of stall the process for people who are already familiar with that population and have trust with them. Like the row stuff kind of got messy.
We could put a placeholder under regional, because that's a regional
Okay.
item.
It's a statewide issue, though. I mean,
Yeah, I was thinking WSAC or regional.
You can go both, because it kind of
Oh, okay.
touches.
Just so we don't lose the, we'll have to make. But like, in reality, you know, we only come to the WSAC with, I don't know, 3 or 4 things, you know? We don't dump 20 items on WSAC and, because it's just, they've done it different. I was on there a couple of years, Commissioner Mejia has been on there a couple of years. They've done it different ways. One year we did it, it was just kind of like, everyone just voted, like, put them in number, order, and then they just took it, and then we had a discussion, and then we did another revote, you know, and then we kept whittling it down till we got to 4. WSAC was like trying to come up with 4
Out of all the counties?
out of all the counties. Like, we had started with 30, 35 got through the first vetting. I don't know how many they started with, hundreds probably. 35 got through the first vetting, and then we whittled it down to 7, and then we whittled it down to 4. And one of our bills that had gotten nowhere the first year, it got to number 7, got through the last 7, but we landed at 7. We couldn't get in the top 4. So those are the developmental disabilities. We're like, we're pulling out.
So in this exercise, we're looking for WSAC to pick up these items to foster legislation changes. This isn't necessary to go to our legislators and say, we want some money.
Correct, that would be like the one down at the end, or the 2 down at the end. in a
Gotcha,
sense.
gotcha, okay.
We need a small, we need to collectively pick which of those red are the most important that we think
We need those dots.
important
Then
plus
put next.
feasibility, plus, how likely or,
Yeah, the likelihood is also important, because if you pick something that's
yeah.
that other counties don't share, you can almost guarantee it's gonna get bumped off.
Right, so we gotta be like strategic about picking the right WSAC priorities that might get us somewhere, but that we care about. So, I don't know how to do that the best way. Can you, dots?
I mean, I think let's throw everything at them this year, and then whatever sticks, right? I feel like we've played kind of nice with WSAC, and I've served on the LSC for 2 years, and now it's changed a little bit. I know this year it's definitely going to be changing. I don't know how the new process is going to work out, but I'm thinking let's just give them all the priorities that we have listed there, and on the May meeting, as these are getting drilled down, I think we'll have more chances of getting something on the agenda than not if we have more items to present.
So there's 13 listed right now.
Yeah,
Desire,
that's good.
the thought is to take those 13 and submit them all?
Yep. At least that's how I feel.
I, like, tort reform and rural ADUs, I only support that. I need to know more. Like, there are probably a direction that I could support, but not every direction. So for me, I'm not comfortable putting forward those as just vague concepts, not knowing what WSAC would do with them or the legislature would do with them.
Well, how many of these are fleshed out to where the commission feels like we have enough understanding of what we're asking? Because to your point, Commissioner, if it's not fleshed out, then we're not even sure what we're asking WSAC to do.
Tort reform, I mean, short and sever liability, there's all kinds of models that you could use. So, conservation future water rights, I think that's pretty clear.
And Robin, didn't Rob
What do you
say
mean by
that we
clear?
have a
Like,
deadline?
I think that's one that should be on there.
Well, clear, no, I mean clear that what it means,
Oh, okay,
like what we're asking.
okay,
Just clarity, does it have enough clarity to be like a concrete ask?
Yeah.
I see.
Utilities, that's pretty clear. Property tax one's very clear, it's been a bill. Public defense funding, everybody understands what that means. Utility and B&O taxes, could be structured
You know what
different
it
ways, but I think you could ask something like that.
We want the same authority as the cities have. I mean,
The animal services, yes, because there was already work on that, it's a state sales tax holdback. Tort reform and rural ADUs, now, rural ADUs, Commissioner Edwards could probably articulate something more specific on that he means, I just don't want to speak for him. Tort reform, I think, that's not specific enough, because there's a lot of different ways to slice that. We've never talked about what way we want to go. We just know it's quite really happy with the status quo. The funding for parks, okay. EMS licensing certification, probably needs a little bit more. If we were gonna ask somebody for something, we probably need a little more concrete concept.
I don't see that gaining legs at WSAC. The legislators that I'm talking to are very specific, and they know the industry, they've worked in the industry, and,
so can we start taking items off the list?
Yeah, so far tort reform and EMS licensing, just put a little like,
That's what I'm hearing too.
so we're down to about
3 down.
So, how many did we take off? 3?
You just took off 2.
Okay.
That leaves, did hospital certificates a need? Do we still want to keep that here, or did you want to direct that to?
I think WSALFA would be good, but I mean, plain devil's advocate, I guess, right? Like, if we really think about like the physical healthcare infrastructure that's available in Thurston County, right? It really affects the residents because of the broad scope the state has regarding the certificate of need process. So, I mean, while it is the hospital issue, it is also impacting healthcare resources available here locally because of the barriers of the process.
so maybe we should.
So, like, for example, like recently, right, it has created barriers in the process for like more behavioral health beds in Thurston County. So that's like specific example here locally on how it's affecting us. So
So you move it to regional?
but it doesn't just affect Thurston County, it affects
But is
the
it
whole state.
schools that are asking for more beds and we're just supporting their request?
I don't know what other jurisdictions are experiencing.
Yeah, we'd probably have to do research on that.
Wasalfo would know.
I would say with rural ADUs, like Commissioner Edwards will need to be more specific on that. Ask him. I don't think that's not a specific enough ask from my perspective. I don't want to remove it without giving him a chance, but.
Yeah.
Well, Commissioner Mejia, you know how it rolls at LSC last year. I mean, just gonna ask us for, can we just throw like 10 things at them? And go-
Oh, I'm saying let's do it. I'll be there to back Wayne up too, so I can get my gloves off.
We don't, at this point, need to prioritize them, or do we want to do that?
I think that's a,
Well, we have to send them. When is the deadline for the WSAC that we have to submit these?
the 19th.
The 19th.
Okay. I think prioritizing them will help, right? Just in case they're like, okay, you submitted too many. They can take like the top 4, at least that are our priorities. But
Quite frankly, if I may, I would suggest that we make public defense funding, if not number 1, number 2, because every county is going to be hit by those new standards, and we're all hurting for money.
I agree with that.
For me, I'd say public defense, conservation, future, water rights.
Why don't you put dots next to them?
Yep.
Use Commissioner.
We can
Dots.
And then
vote.
those two, and then the park M&O thing. I mean, cause that, just make fix.
Park M&O.
If we could get this, it would fix a few things.
Just, it stirs up too many bees when
To
you
be more
start kicking
practical,
that hornet's
get
nest.
through, and then those 3 shouldn't be super controversial with WSAC, and then, the behavioral health thing, I think, is a big thing. Behavioral health service rates to get more crisis.
Yeah, but the big question from the state is where are they gonna get the money? They get billions in Medicaid, can't pay for what they have now.
For homeless services, what's the ask? What is this, there's gotta be a specific.
Yeah, I know. But like I said, it's a half-baked idea. I could come up with like a little 1-pager. Like I would just need probably 12 hours to think about it. There are so many things that it could be. I know it's
We
really
don't want a
broad.
one pager, we want one specific ask.
I mean, I can make it 1 paragraph.
It's tough.
Yeah, I can definitely get that to you before the 19th. Like, I can get it to you before the end of the week. What about the rates for behavioral health services? Who brought that one up? Was that,
I think
do you have a
Rob
specific,
said it.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but
It's so when people that qualify for Medicaid, which is a huge, swath of the vulnerable population, when they are in crisis facilities, the amount that's paid out for those beds, for those services, has to be enough to like support when facilities are closing up because they just can't, it's like it's like public defenders, if you're paying the contractors, $50 an hour like we were, and people can't make a living doing that, they're just gonna not want the contracts.
yeah.
That's where we're at, and, you're losing, and these are life-saving
Yeah.
needs for the community.
I've seen the impacts of that too with people that I've worked with who aren't able to get the services they need, or they're turned away for whatever reason. And it's really like, it is life or death services. I would say we should prioritize that one too.
I just feel like I'm hearing that mental health is, I mean, we've been hearing this a little bit over the last few years, but I'm hearing that that's still a top legislative priority. Like, everybody knows there's more to be done. And so I think the legislators, there's a lot of legislators that would be open to hearing about this. I mean, not that they don't necessarily know it, and there may not be money, but we can't be losing the crisis beds we have when the state's investing. I mean, they've invested in these behavioral health navigators and all these other things, and this is gonna become a bottleneck that.
So is there agreement to circle that as one of our fourth consensus items?
I would say yes, if other people agree.
Commissioner Mejia, do you have any other advocacy for a fourth that's different than the behavioral health rates?
We can clearly articulate what we're trying to accomplish.
I can talk to Joe and get, or Emily, you can maybe.
Yeah,
Ask Joe what the legislative ask ought to be.
okay, I can do that.
He just talked about this morning.
Who's Joe?
Joe Avalos is so we have these behavioral health administrative service organizations. This is like a crazy, it's been shifting, like, so it's like, they used to administer all of the funding for behavioral health, and then the state changed the model, and they allowed MCOs, managed care organizations, to come in, but the ASOs still have a certain role. Ours was so robust and well-run and organized that we were able, some of them just closed up shop, but ours stayed in business, doing non-Medicaid funding and doing crisis service response. And they've got the state allowed them to do it by creating two arms. You'll hear OHRS, Olympic Health and Recovery Services, and the TMBH ASO, which is Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization. It's Mason County and Thurston County. So it's 2 Thurston County commissioners and 1 Mason County commissioner is the governing board.
Interesting.
I was on there for 5 years. I just graduated off, and Emily and Carolina have taken over the county roles. It's Gary and I last 2 years. So they're just learning. It's a pretty complex area in
Yeah,
terms
it
of
is.
what, and Joe Avalos is the CEO of OHRS, and Mark Friedman's about to retire, so Joe's, I think, gonna be taking over.
Yeah.
That's been decided, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, it's been decided.
So Joe is gonna be the new kind of like guru of Thurston, Mason County behavioral health funding.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's a quasi-government organization. Used to be under Thurston County Public Health, and it moved out.
Before it was the BHO, it was the RSN, Regional Support Networks,
Interesting.
100% funded by the state.
In California, all that behavioral health money goes straight to the counties. And then they administer it with providers, but
And basically, the BHASO performs that function here. They're
interesting.
just a little bit independent of counties.
Okay, it's good to know. I'd love to meet.
Sorta. I mean, we're
Yeah,
governing
kinda,
board,
sorta.
but they're not, they're.
Hey,
So anyway,
Brandon,
Joe is really, really talented
Love
and
to meet him.
knowledgeable individual in this community, so he's a really solid guy, so it's,
Yeah,
when he's telling me
that'd be
that this
awesome.
is, he's not the kind of person that, that tries to create drama or blows the whistle when it's not, like, when he's telling me that this is a crisis, it's a crisis. So we need to, that's why.
So we get the information from him. So do we want to circle that as a fourth? Or do we need to get the information?
Let's have Emily and Carolina talk to him and see if there's a legislative ask. I mean, they're part of networks too that develop legislative agendas.
Yeah, they
Right.
might already have it on the top of their thing, and all we
Exactly.
do is cut and paste.
I sent a text message to Joe, so I'm just waiting to hear back.
Oh, okay.
okay. They would most likely be pushing their request up through Department of Social Health Services. Brandy, what do we have on the work sessions next Wednesday? Do we have some open time?
Wednesday afternoon. Commissioner's office staff meeting. And then we have budget in the morning on Wednesday.
Oh, we
And we
can't
have
do
commissioners
those.
check-in on Monday.
Right.
I think the following week we might have,
No, that's too late. It has to be before the 19th.
How about during commissioners check-in on Monday?
Yeah, so what I was gonna suggest, I was hoping for Wednesday, because then we could, if you see the handout that you got, some of the items have a little bit of a blurb. And I was thinking maybe we could flesh something like that out, but Monday's gonna be a really fast turnaround.
Especially since Rob's not here, he's the one taking point of
Exactly,
this.
he
Yeah.
would be the one. That's why I was hoping for Wednesday. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
back on Monday.
I mean, we can communicate with him, but he's in a conference right now till end of Friday.
Well, I don't think the blurb would be for us, right? He would have until Wednesday to, like, or the 19th to work on little blurbs. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
so, I mean, realistically, I think we all know these items, except, like, you know, there's some items that we just need a little bit more clarification once, you know, everyone's there. But
Sure.
the blurb would be more for our submittals to WSAC and then coming up with our own one-sheeter. So I don't know. So I don't think we, unless everyone wants to see a little paragraph about each, a little blurb about each one.
Okay, that's great. So let's put this on what's on Monday morning, Brandy?
sorry, let me flip screens. Monday morning is potential sell.
Monday I think it's the 13th.
Yeah, we have two things full. Wait for my computer to respond. We have potential South County Transfer Station update. And then we have public defense in the morning after that, caseload standards.
Caseload standards.
I'm not sure if the potential means that it might be a potential meeting for the
Public Works item.
transfer station update.
Could push that out and work on this instead if you wanted to come back. You know, take a little time to think about it and come back. That way we could get Commissioner Edwards involved in the
Is the
conversation.
priority here the WSAC list because they've
I-
got their,
I think
deadline?
that you're pretty close on WSAC. I think we ought to prioritize what you want us to take to the regional
when does that happen?
committee. I haven't seen anything yet from Doug on when that starts.
So the deadline though really is the WSAC item for the 19th.
That's the 19th that we're pushing up against, and then the regional one's gonna come pretty quick. And then, as Deborah said, we're gonna want our own.
Remember,
Quick
these
as
are
possible.
two different facilities.
What? Yes.
Sorry. Bad joke.
Well, that would be one way to address random livestock, but.
Sorry.
What?
Never mind.
Nothing.
Well, Commissioner Fournier is just clarifying an item. So, all right. Do we want to talk about the county priorities then?
Sure.
Like what? That's definitely,
Is
Well,
that
maybe-
the priority we want to make?
no.
Can someone read me the county priorities, please?
Property tax, 1%. Tax fee for animal services. Number 3, timber revenue study. Number 4, the ERP right-of-way M&O money and housing. Number 5, funding for parks, the impact fee, park impact fee, M&O flexibility. Number 6 is EMS licensing certification. 7, meat processing plant. 8, building 7 childcare facility. 9, courthouse.
what does that 9 courthouse mean?
Give us $300 million to build a new courthouse. Crappy courthouse.
I mean,
It's not safe,
Okay,
right? Commissioner?
so,
300 million.
so out of those 9, how many do we have to dwindle it to?
4 or
So
5.
usually we get about, 5 or 6 onto the page. And,
But isn't that usually with the shared legislative agenda too?
no, not
Oh, no?
necessarily.
Okay,
But we do ask the other elected officials if they have anything that they feel strongly should be part of the county's ask.
You're banned from the whiteboard.
no, if I was, if I had my way, I would make our asks, their top priorities, and I think they're like doable. Like those things.
okay, can you say them, please? Because
I think asking for a timber revenue study is an achievable request. Talking about the funding for park impact fees being used for maintenance operations, and then a bigger capital budget request for money to build our building 7 childcare facility. Prioritizing those, I think that they're achievable.
So the thing with the funding for the parks, impact fees is we, couldn't get any traction on that the last time we took it because of the, pushback we got from the other stakeholders, specifically the master builders. And what we need to do is figure out how to get past the concerns of the stakeholders so that we go with a joint effort and not, opposition we already know about.
Do we have their concerns documented?
Yep.
So we know
I
exactly
think we
what they
do.
are? Okay,
Yep,
so we know their position.
yep, and it's gonna be, I wouldn't say it's insurmountable, but it's gonna be tough to address.
Challenge accepted.
I'm not arm wrestling.
We're sending Gary if anybody's arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with those. I mean, for me, I'd probably vote for animals, timber, park impact fees, and the ERP right-of-way money. Because I'm scared about the huge investment we've made and then having it drop in our lap whenever that.
I think we still advocate, we certainly advocate, but like as far as like, we want this, like, we're not necessarily asking for anything for us for that. This is kind of the way like, you get to make some, that's like what do they call it, the pork barrel?
Well, just
what
because
is it?
you're saying because there's more than one county involved there.
Yeah, and like the childcare facility, like we get our chance to ask for some money for us. And that's different than asking for things for everybody statewide.
I think that it's important to not drop the meat processing plant though, because that actually did start to get traction. And one of the things we heard back was, because it's the supplemental year, it was not the year to ask for capital money. So next year might be the year to do that.
But we're not the ones asking for money we're not asking for a check to be written to the county. We're saying, hey, write that check to the EDC, right?
Preferably, but it could come through the county if it had to.
Yeah.
And then we would grant it to the EDC.
Okay.
So I mean, we did quite a bit of work on that, both on our own and as part of the regional effort.
So keep it on there,
That would be my suggestion.
yeah.
So see, it's all important.
Well, it is, because I think from that list, you start to determine what can we get together, who are the stakeholders we can bring with us, what's the momentum that we can create around it, and then how specific of an ask can we get to a dollar amount so that they can potentially become earmarks as well, earmark requests. So something like a meat processing plan, if there's a lot of work that's been done, you're saying, hey, this is what we need to make that happen. If it's not legislative, if it's dollars, and that's why I say the Building 7 childcare facility has a lot of opportunity because you have done so much work already. Now you're saying, this is how much we want, and you can pick up some money. You just have to make sure you can deliver. If they give you a bit, but they don't give you all of it,
Yeah.
where are you gonna get the rest of the
Other than the
dollar amount?
courthouse, we should be able to just put a draft together pretty quickly on all of the items on this list.
Yeah, well, I've seen done in the past, you put like a position paper together, very clear. This is whose district we're asking it from, this is how much we're asking for, this is how far along we are, this is what it will do, real quick and easy.
So let us do that. Let us put together, my suggestion is that we ask for all of these things at the region and see what we can push through with a emphasis on, you're gonna pull that, okay.
Yeah, just, I mean, it's,
All right, let's
it's
focus.
What are you pulling then, now?
EMS, he's pulling the EMS license or certificate item.
I thought we blocked Wayne from the whiteboard.
Yeah,
that wasn't voted.
All right, so we'll draft up what the county, white paper will look like. And we'll just do the same format as we've done the last 8 years, and see how we want to tweak that. We'll bring that on Monday, that's easy. On the regional ones, we should probably, put all of these in front of the partners. I don't know that they'll go for the homeless services item, but we'll see if we can't make that stick. And then, the WSAC list, we can work with Rob to flesh that out.
when would you need me to provide more info about that before you send it off to see if it sticks? Like how quick?
By the end of the week.
Okay, I can do
Put
that.
your thoughts
this week.
together, because then we can
Okay.
bake it into, and obviously share with the other
Exactly.
commissioners.
The state stone thing, I think, we're asking for the state stone to be named as
Oh,
the
right.
sandstone. I think this next year, Peter is gonna work with the Wilkeson rep, and we're gonna just name sandstone the state stone instead of Tenino sandstone. So,
That might, see, that'll get your, other stakeholders.
horrible, collaborating is horrible. Yeah, no, I think that'll be the way to go.
Get it
It'll
through.
end a 50-year feud.
Sandstone. Stuff. All right. You got enough we can chat about what the assignment is.
Yeah, and we'll make Rob watch this whole thing tonight.
Dinner's canceled.
I'm kidding. But we'll give Rob the notes so that he can help us work on the back end.
Yep.
You got all that?
If you, I don't know how you're gonna format that, but like, say for the county thing, if you put those, well, we haven't really decided on those.
We'll format it and then we can move it around.
Okay.
Yep. Cool.
So you guys got what you need?
Thank
Right.
you.
Then that takes us to commissioner items. Are there any commissioner items we need to address before?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
For those who don't know,
Taking selfies.
yeah, I'm taking a selfie. Me and
Leonard
Leonard,
in the
Robin,
back.
and Brandy. Yeah. The Olympia City Council passed the tenants' rights package last night with a slight adjustment, changing the 5% per year cap to a 7% cap. Otherwise, I think everything else stayed the same. So that was a big win for Olympia. I know I wasn't there at the city council meeting, but I heard from a couple council members that it was, a few people called on the county to follow suit. That's what I heard. I don't know exactly the context, so I'm gonna go back and watch the meeting from last night to see what was said. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there so people are aware, and I'll find more info and bring that back to the board next time we meet
Is there
about what
any-
they meant.
You weren't there, do you, okay, because I was just curious, I think Rob provided me some of the statutes, which basically say that cities and counties cannot regulate the, rate of rent.
Yeah,
So I was texting Danny Madrone, like Councilmember Madrone, like, how are you guys getting around that, like, that law?
There was something about they could help with relocation costs, but that was about it. That's what I read.
She felt confident, because like Tacoma and
Yeah.
Bellingham, a couple other cities have done it, and she felt confident that what they were doing was getting around that statute. I'm not sure I agree, but, I'm not, just in terms of like, whether she's right or wrong, it's not for me to decide, but I'm just curious, because if
They're gonna find out.
they'll find out, and that kind of would tell us what we can or can't do in
The
Thurston.
statutes are pretty clear, that language, and if you didn't get them, we can share them with you.
okay.
Did you read it the way I read it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Robin's the one that highlighted in the
Rob.
meeting.
And are you aware of?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
Robin
no,
was the
in the
one-
meeting,
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
meeting, you kind of found.
in the meeting.
Yeah,
it
I do
wasn't
have
hard
that
to find.
actually.
But, but like, I think Olympia tried to structure it, did you know Olympia's package, like, they were like, you can raise over the 7, now it's 7%, it was 5 originally. You can raise over the 7%, but then if the person can't afford that, then you have to help them with relocation, whether or not that runs afoul of, but
Right.
it sounds pretty broad in the statute, like you cannot pass any rules concerning the,
Cap on rent.
well, not cap, because it's not a cap, but
Right.
concerning the rate of rent to be charged or something. It sounded broader to me than just saying you can't cap it. Because then I think Olympia could say, we're not capping it,
Yeah, it sounded broad to me too, that's why I thought, this is interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. So we'll see if they get any challenges to what they did, and how they turn out. But
Yeah, I'm sure they had legal review.
I guess I'm looking at county manager, if you hear from Jay Burney, the city manager, or anyone from the city, like, that there's an issue there, or let us know.
I will.
Because I'd certainly be really curious to know if they're, how they're feeling like they're free and clear.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, that's good. That was interesting update. I didn't realize that they changed that to 7.
Yeah,
Commissioner Mejia?
Thank you. I heard from Joe, by the way,
Okay, go.
kind of dragging us back to the legislative. He said, the biggest issue I see for us are the crisis stabilization facility rates. More than 3 facilities have closed in the past couple of years due to the low rates, including in Tacoma just 3 months ago, despite Commerce putting out several rounds of funding for capital construction. He says he's on the state-run work group that is hoping to fix that, but it is low as molasses. So,
Can you respond to him and just tell him that if they develop a more concrete proposal, can just share it with us so that we can see exactly what the ask is and potentially help them advocate for that?
yes.
Perfect. Okay. Commissioner Klaus, you had something else? Is that it?
that was it.
Okay. Anybody else?
I attended the TPB meeting this morning. They're preparing for their RTIP RFPs to go
Regional
out.
Transportation.
Yeah, so they're preparing to put out a request for proposals for the RTIP. There's a bunch more money available than they anticipated. They got an unexpected like $5 million for the Surface Transport Improvement Program, I believe what it's called. And there's another program called CMAC that is somehow, it's designed to like, it has something to do with air quality and getting people off of heating their homes with wood. And I don't know anything about CMAC funding, but I'll maybe at the next meeting I'll bring down the packet that I got. But the additional STIP money is, that's all good news. Oh, and then we talked about goals and kind of the aspirational things for TPB. And there were some things that the staff had listed out, and then, sorry, there's some floating around. And then Andy Ryder and some of the other members said, hey, we need bigger goals than these. We need to be talking about large, aspirational regional transport plans that are gonna be you know, transformative for the region. And so then everybody was kind of asked to take a step back and figure out how to determine what those are and reach out to the other jurisdictions and find out what their big goals are. So, and for Andy, it was things like expanding Marvin Road and adding in dedicated bus lanes and things like that for public transit. And so what those other things are, they're going to be on a fishing expedition to determine.
Okay.
I do have one more thing.
Yeah.
I went to Orca today, and that was a really good meeting. We talked a little bit about getting them involved in conversations around like land use and zoning changes and how it impacts air quality. And one thing we specifically talked about was getting them involved in conversations around the industrial park planning process. So I was thinking I would connect them potentially with like some members of the planning commission, possibly to see if there are meetings that the planning commission thinks would be beneficial for someone from Orca to sit in on or attend. So I don't know if anyone had any thoughts about that, on how we could get them more involved with those conversations.
Industrial park, which one do you mean?
Olympic Regional Clean Air Alliance.
6 counties collaborate on a clean air agency. It's like commissioner from each county, plus the 3 biggest cities, which are Olympia, Tumwater, and Lacey. So Thurston County actually has 4 seats on this 9-member board.
Oh, wow.
Mandated by state law.
Got it.
Commissioner Mejia?
I feel like for them to be involved kind of like on a Thurston County basis, and like TRPC would be the best level of involvement for them, just because then, you know,
That makes sense.
at the previous meeting, like the industrial land study was, you know, brought forward to all the partners and discussed. And so I think just items like that, I'm just saying like TRPC would probably be the best avenue for them to get involved in those land use and zoning conversations.
It's just so much ingrained into my like DNA to never invite government regulatory agencies in anywhere. So I
I know you hate collaboration.
no, I know I was joking when I said that, but I'm always like, I don't want them looking at my backyard, but I hear what you're saying. But, so like the paranoid rural, landowner in me is like, oh no, not them. Don't invite them around. But I know what you're saying.
But what about the firefighter in you?
Same.
Really, with the clean air?
I wear an SCBA when I'm working. That's where I get my clean airs out of the backpack. I'm joking.
Not everyone has access to the
Joking.
backpack lane.
Right before this meeting, I was invited to attend a meeting, kind of a follow-up to our PSC briefing, but this is with a couple of their like more high up, couldn't tell you their titles, but Matt Perry, and then another guy who was Joshua Johnson, something like that, but who is involved in all their planning. Like Gary would have had a field day. Like I tried to channel him a little bit to just ask some questions that I knew he would be asking, but we went really deeper into this whole concept of how, like, what is the gap for the they've already projected, of course, what the electrical grid needs are going to be and what the gap is that they have, and they're trying to cobble together like the answer to Gary's perpetual question of like how we're going to plug that gap. And it's not a problem that's solved, but it's a problem that's being actively worked on with a lot of ideas around it. Obviously, they're working on it hard. I asked them if they're, because remember Doug Ma said that that they don't have a lot of room to wiggle around because they're constrained by these regulatory environments. One of which is the UTC, which must approve all their rates. And so I wanted to know a little more about how constrained they are by the UTC. Like, is the UTC going to let them increase rates to meet the capital, like all the investments that they need to make to get clean energy? And he basically said yes, but there's a process. They have to do a lot of upfront work to demonstrate to the UTC that they've done their needs analysis. They're picking the most economically efficient way, and they have to check a lot of boxes in order to get the approval to then increase rates to help pay for what the investments that they need. But there is the process there. I asked about the Snake River dams because there's a lot of movement toward trying to remove them, and I wanted to know what he thought of that idea. Silly was his, he said, I'm just the operational guy though, like, this is not the political answer, but, you know, he just said there's one, they have a gap, they have a conservative gap of 2,700 megawatts they need to get to the full carbon-free, like, you know, and that, those dams are producing 1,000 to 3,000 megawatts, he says, so he says, until we have a clear winner on the emerging technology that's gonna get us there, he doesn't think we should be messing with the dams. So that was an interesting conversation. They're looking to do a lot of wind, that small scale nuclear thing they were talking about, as well as different battery storage stuff that they're gonna do.
Was that was in addition to the presentation that we had? You went
Yeah.
and spoke?
Yeah, I was invited by because PSE had some upper level leaders in town.
Nice.
They wanted to meet some local people. I was actually, it was supposed to be Lisa Parsley, Amy Evans, Carolyn Cox, myself, but only Carolyn and I showed up, so. And Doug was there. So I had.
That presentation was good too.
It was good, and this was a great.
They didn't answer everything that Gary wanted
Yeah.
answered, but they're like you're saying, we're moving that direction. And it almost seemed like they're moving towards decentralizing a lot of their systems, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I was, they talked about, well, what are we doing now? And this was and actually Doug brought this up, because he was like, Commissioner Edwards really was worried, skeptical that you're gonna be able to make it.
What does Doug do for PSE? Is he a
I
consultant?
don't
They're lobbies.
Okay,
He's new
Okay.
to that role, I guess, because I'd never seen him there before, but yeah, he was there against the
Former mayor?
yeah.
Yeah. He, so this guy Josh was saying that they're doing a lot of stuff, they call it deal origination, so they're, right now, to try to get them from here to there in the midterm, they're doing a lot, where they used to just he said, all power used to just be bought, if you're driving across to eastern Washington and you hit Vantage, and there's 5 dams to your north and south, that's where all the power was generated and bought and sold and for our whole region.
Huge region.
Now, yeah, huge region. So now they're going more aggressively into other markets, other places. They're doing long-term deals, whereas normally they would never look at 5-year deal, contracts. They are now to try to make sure they can secure that intermediate bridge amount of power. And they're looking at all different sources, not just, what they used to look at. It was called Mid-Sea, apparently. It was the market that was Middle Columbia, where all those dams were generating so much power that it's powered the whole region, so. Anyway, it was interesting follow-up. Commissioner Mejia, any commissioner item?
Nope.
Okay. Then we're done, 3:47, adjourned.